Hey guys, this is Nick from the Three Forks Church of Christ, and I thought we'd get together just for a few minutes and study on the topic of renewal. You know, we often face times in our life where things just aren't kind of on the footing we'd like them to be. Maybe we've been going through a challenge, maybe a downtime, maybe just a lack of direction in our life. And we're looking for that opportunity of renewal. And God has a lot to say about renewal. In fact, there's a very heavy emphasis on the principle within the idea of a person becoming a child of God and this renewal of life and renewal of purpose and renewal of faith. But also along the line, we need not just that initial renewed life, but we need that opportunity kind of to renew our focus and our purpose. And hopefully we can talk about that for a few minutes, and hopefully it'll be an encouragement to you. I want to think about this subject or this concept of renewal from the point of view, like I said, of Scripture. But I do want to consider it from the point of view also of that God is, God's the expert here. God, Jesus, the Spirit, God as a whole is the one who designed us, who created us, and He knows what makes us what we are. And keep that in mind as we look at some thoughts here from Jesus first, and then also from Paul. But Paul, set us up with this idea that I want to come back to at the end, but we're going to start with the end in mind here. So he says, therefore, and this is in the second letter to the Corinthians, therefore we do not lose heart, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. And it is that concept that, yes, the outside, the world is having an influence on us that is wearing on us. And of course in the text, even to the point where we know our physical bodies and so forth are going to wear out, but inside, the inner man, the inner person is being renewed day by day. So let's start with what Jesus had to say on this topic, because I think it's really, really powerful. Not just because Jesus said it, which that makes it powerful. It's coming from the Son of God, the expert on life, but because it's very simple but profound when we grab a hold of it. Now, this is from the Sermon on the Mount, and Jesus is talking about all these principles that have to do with life and godliness and living after God in this world, both our attitude and our actions and even our thoughts in that respect. But we get down to chapter 6, and he's talking a lot about what we have set ourselves to. He talks about, laying up treasure in heaven right before this. He talks about after this that we can't serve mammon and God. We have to choose. But here in verses 22 and 23, Matthew 6, Jesus says the lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? So as we're considering these thoughts from Jesus here and talking about this idea that we come to these places in our life, maybe it is for the first time that we have started to consider spiritual things and are looking for that renewal. We need to know and understand these things. And maybe if you have the opportunity and you want to write, that'd be great. I'd be glad to talk to you about some of those things, about becoming that child of God and obeying the gospel. But maybe you're already a child of God and you just are struggling with, some of those hard moments in life and trying to get back on track. Well, listen to what Jesus says here. The lamp of the body is the eye. What you focus on. And I think he means more than just what we see, but what we focus on. That's what fills us on the inside. So if we're feeling, dark and weighed down, maybe we need to step back and say, what is it that I'm focusing on? Paul would say in the book of Philippians chapter 4 and down in verse 8, he says, whatever things are good, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good rapport, focus on these things, or meditate, he says there, on these things. I think for good purpose and good reason, because, what Jesus says here, the lamp of the body is the eye. And if we focus on it, it's going to fill us on the inside. And if we focus on good things and spiritual things and things that bring us strength, then it would make sense that we're going to be strengthened on the inside. We're going to be renewed on the inside. And I really think that is what we so often need. We need not just to be reminded of right and wrong. We need that. Don't get me wrong. We don't only need to be told what Jesus said on a particular instance, but we need to be reminded that, what we focus on outside of church, outside of prayer, but every day, what we consume, what we look for in the things we consume, has an impact on who we are on the inside. And we can really do some steps to renewing that inner person by keeping that in mind. Let's read it one more time together. The lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in you is darkness, how great is that darkness? And if we lay this beside some things that Paul said, and we kind of started with that, but we're coming back to that in more detail. And he says, therefore, and this is 2 Corinthians 4, verses 16 and 18. He says, therefore we do not lose heart. We talk about the idea of going through this life, and sometimes, we really have some challenges we have to face. And Paul was no exception to that. Paul really had to face a lot of hard things as he was ministering for Christ in the kingdom. He lists some of those in the book of Galatians about being shipwrecked and snake bit. But probably the harder things, and I don't feel like I'm going on a ledge to say this, are the interpersonal things. Being rejected by his own people, being stoned by those who had rejected him, having those who would come and preach as to add to his chains, as he talks about in Philippians. But he says, we don't lose heart. Why? He says, even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day. So Paul says, I'm not losing heart, though I'm taking all of this strain on the outward body. I know the inward man is being renewed. And then he says something that's really hard for me to grasp. He says, for our light affliction, and you consider all that he had been going through, I want to consider that light. But when you read the rest of it, you kind of understand what he's saying here. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Now you could consider all the persecution he had been through, all the hard times, being arrested, being tried, having people take out an oath to take his life, being shipwrecked, all these things that he had faced and went through. He said these were light affliction. Well, if he'd focused on those things alone, no, they would be heavy burdens. But he says, one, he realized they were temporary. Two, he realized I'm working and I'm going to receive a far more exceeding weight, eternal weight of glory from and even through these things. And then he gives us the key, which Jesus already gave us. He says, while we do not look, and Jesus said, the lamp of the eye is the lamp of the body, and what we focus on is what we fill ourselves with. He says, while we do not look at the things which are seen, but the things which are not seen. So what he's saying, I don't focus on just the things that are here, temporary, in front of me, the physical things, but I focus on things behind that, the greater things, the spiritual things. He calls them the things which are not seen here, the eternal things. And it provides him a perspective where he can not just, kind of have a different perspective, but have this opportunity to renew that inner person. And I hope that's what we can take away from that as well. There are going to be days that we really are doing well, and maybe today's one of those days, and I hope that you stop and give God praise for all the good things that are happening in your life. But there are going to be days where it feels like this outward body is perishing. We just are really under stress. And we also need to stop and give God praise and focus on all that God has done and offers us, so that we can keep that focus and we can renew the inner self, the inner person. There is a lot that God offers us and ways of living in this life. It all starts with putting Jesus first. It all starts with putting God first, being willing to walk in His ways. And I hope that just these small studies might be an encouragement along that way to do just that. You renew the inner self by focusing on the things that God said would renew the inner self. Eternal things, good things, lovely things, godly things. We'll see you guys next time.